After spending months denying any wrongdoing, a former Bay Area police officer now admits that he was part of a conspiracy to steal drugs and cash from drivers during traffic stops along Highway 101.
Senior investigative reporter Begad Shaban aired a series of reports last month on the allegations and was in federal court this evening when the former officer confessed to a bizarre crime spree stretching years.
Talk to us. Why are you deciding to change your plea?
No, thank you. No comment. Thank you.
Brendan J.C. Tatum didn't say much as he walked into federal court. But inside, the former Rohnert Park police officer told a judge he now wants to plead guilty to all three of the Hollywood-like conspiracy charges lodged against him: extortion, tax evasion, and falsifying records.
Yeah, she works in professional standards, so like the office that conducts background checks and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I asked for somebody in internal affairs. They sent me to her. I thought she was an investigator. So I started talking to her about my incident. And then the way that she treated the information I was telling her, there was something that just wasn't right about it. One of the things, I asked, explained to her what happened to me, and I was robbed south of Hopland by two police officers. And she was vocalizing across the office she was in, asking somebody else, hey, this guy's on the phone saying he got robbed by some cops. Who should he talk to? And that right there, sent up red flags to me in the sense of that's not how somebody in internal affairs should be handling that type of information. Yeah. Other people shouldn't be hearing that being, voiced out throughout an office or a station or whatever else.
Sure.
And just the way that she was responding to my allegations, it just told me that she was involved somehow. So I thought about it over the weekend. That, like I said, that was a Friday. I had some previous experiences with the FBI, and so I decided to take my complaint into the FBI. And because I knew that the FBI was who investigates police corruption.
Right.
And so Monday morning, first thing, I went into the San Antonio field office of the FBI, particularly that office because that's the office that I had had previous experiences with. We gave approximately about an hour and a half, 2-hour interview. I brought in, I don't remember how many pages my summary of the incident was at that point, but it was a 4 or 5 page document that outlined everything that kind of happened in chronological order. Also the potential people that I thought might be involved that I found on my internet searches and things that I had combed through. The agent that I spoke with looked at it and said, there's a lot of information here for us to go off of. I've got to write up a report and send it to San Francisco, and they'll assign it to somebody. So give it just a little bit of time and just sit on your hands for a little bit and give us some time. So I sat back and waited till after the first of the year. I hadn't heard anything. And on January the 3rd, I called and I spoke with an agent in the Santa Rosa office, confirmed that they did have a copy of my complaint. But they said probably it's not going to get looked at. They said it has to do with cannabis. Cannabis is illegal on the federal level, and so I immediately said, okay, well, we're going to go to the media. And so I approached Julie Johnson with the Press Democrat and Kim Kemp with Redheaded Black Belt. And the reason I chose both of those journalists, because those were the journalists that were covering stories related to cannabis. And especially Kim Kemp, because she was hyper local.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I wanted to get my story out there, to find other victims that had gone through the same thing.
Yeah. So, and then when did you start talking to those individuals at the Mendocino County Sheriff's Office, Randy Johnson and those guys?
Well, I don't have it in front of me. But,
no, not exact dates. But
yeah, but I think I tried to call Randy Johnson because Christina Luna did tell me on that Friday that Randy Johnson was the person that I needed to talk to.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, Randy Johnson at the time was the undersheriff for some reason. But anyway, go ahead.
So, and she told me that he would call me back Monday, which he never did. And then,
of course he didn't, man. He was too busy tending to his own marijuana garden. Anyway, that's a separate video.
He didn't call me back. And I tried multiple different attempts to contact Randy Johnson after that. I think probably 2 or 3 by email and 2 or 3 by voicemail. The first time Randy called me was on January 30th. So about a month, you know, we started right after the 3rd of January, after the FBI field office in Santa Rosa said, we're probably not going to do anything with this because cannabis is illegal, and regardless of what California laws are. From that point, I'm pounding them, trying to, you know, get a response from them. And then after I'm already talking to journalists and I'm talking with Kim, she needed a little bit more to go off of to be able to publish a story. And Mendocino wasn't taking my complaint whatsoever. They were just ignoring me. And I was having a conversation with Kim right after I'd called the California Attorney General's office, and they told me we can't get involved unless if you try to file your complaint via certified mail, the sheriff's department, the district attorney, and the grand jury. And if you don't get a response from that, then the California Attorney General can step in. I mailed certified copies of my complaint to all 3 of those agencies, and January 30th was the first one received by Randy Johnson. And he called me that day and he said, I wanted to call you. I got your complaint and I wanted to talk to you before the end of the day. And basically he told me that no crime was committed, that they were not going to investigate, and that was the attitude. It was very direct and forward that we're not going to do anything about this. From my complaint, I don't know how he can say no crime was committed.
I was going to say, how does he have evidence that no crime was committed or anything, just based off of your complaint alone?
Well, because he knew who robbed me.
No, I know, but it just shows, you know, guilt in some manner or knowledge. You know what I mean? So
and then as soon as my story came out, Kim published the first article on February the 11th, and immediately Under Sheriff Randy Johnson was the first one to announce his upcoming retirement.
Weird. It's a hell of a coincidence. So Randy Johnson calls you back. We got a little sidetrack there. And then how'd that go?
So he calls me back, and I don't remember. I believe it was somewhere around like a 10-minute phone call. But the whole thing was, you know, there's no crime committed here. I got your complaint. There's nothing we're going to do.
Okay.
And my responses to him were very, you know, there was a crime committed. I'm a former police officer. I know the Constitution, and I know what these officers did on the side of the road violated my constitutional rights.
Right.
At very minimum, 4th and 14th Amendment. You know, I mean, just very clear. And so for you to tell me that there was no crime committed only fueled me more. It was only, okay, you're involved too now. On February the 8th, 2 things happened. I received 2 phone calls that day that were kind of one of the first turning points in this whole thing. The first one was from Jeff Andrade. Jeff Andrade was a deputy that worked with Comet. He worked under Bruce. And he contacted me saying that he was investigating my case now. And so in some ways, at first, I was a little bit relieved. When he called me, I was thinking, okay, you know, now something's going to get done about this. But immediately I went into the same, you know, okay, this is part of a cover-up, because he didn't want to know anything about the incident, what happened on the side of the road to me, any of those details. He wanted to know, like, what I did for a living, where I lived when I was in California. And, you know, it was a brief second in there. He was like, well, where'd you live? And I was trying to tell him, and he started talking over me. Well, just give me an address. I mean, just like really being, you know, almost intimidating to a point. And so I gave him some, you know, told him where I was living, and I was like, dude, back off. And And he was like, well, we'll get back with you in a couple of days. You'll hear back from me. And I was like, okay, whatever. And so I called Kim after, and I told her, and I said, you know, this guy's, he's part of it. I mean, he didn't want to know anything about who was involved and what happened on the side of the road. He was just trying to ask me what I did for a living, how I made my money. So a little bit later that day, I got a call from the ATF. Kim was getting ready to publish her first story. The officers on the side of the road claimed to be ATF agents. So her doing her due diligence as a journalist, she needed to contact the ATF and ask them for a statement. She talked to the public relations officer for ATF, who took all the information but said, do you think Zeke would mind talking to a special agent? And she said, I don't think so at all. And she gave him my number, and he called immediately. And, you know, ran through the incident. He wanted to know specifics about what happened. He did make a statement to me. He goes, you do know that wasn't us out there? And I said, yeah, I clearly know that. And so what I didn't know was happening was in the background from this point on, the ATF was pressuring the sheriff's department, and JC Tatum wrote the press release that initially started the frame up of me. That's when the ATF really started pressuring Rohnert Park for a copy of that report that was named in the press release.
Yeah.
The problem is that there was no report written at that time. We're looking at about 11 weeks after my incident, and there was no report written. JC Tatum didn't write the report until February the 20th, the same day that they turned it over to the ATF.
Mm-hmm.
And Tatum was charged and pled guilty to falsifying a report in a federal investigation. So that shows that the report that he filed and gave to the ATF.
Well, of course it was, all made up.
So obviously, the Sheriff's Department, Mendocino Sheriff's Department's feeling the pressure. I'm calling in. I'm sending certified letters to the Sheriff's Department, the DA, the grand jury. Kim Kemp is calling into the Sheriff's Department. She's asking, and she's really hyper local. They know her, and you know, she's pretty persistent when she's calling in and asking for information. So they're feeling the pressure. And so on the morning of February the 13th, when Tatum wrote the press release, Tatum sent it out to a list of Bay Area journalists. That same morning, 3 different phone calls happened. The first one was Jeff Andrade called me back, and he threatened me and told me that they're filing charges against me and they're coming after me, and that it was a Rohnert Park task force. And then once I started to question him about like on what evidence and what's a case number, he just got real robotic, and you could tell that there was somebody else in the room listening and they were talking to him.
Probably Randy Johnson.
Probably so.
So whoever, you know, because Jeff at the time, and you know, I worked with Jeff. So Jeff at the time, he obviously worked for Comet, but he wasn't a supervisor. He wasn't anything. Like he was just, he was, you know, part of the marijuana unit. So
I don't even think he was detective at that point.
He was not. He wasn't.
He was just a canine handler.
No, he was just a canine handler. So whatever he called you about, and basically whatever he said, I was at the demand or command of whoever was in charge of that, right? Which is probably Randy Johnson. Randy probably pulled Jeff and said, you need to call this guy. And obviously when he was asking you personal questions about your address and all that shit, they wanted to look into who you were.
Correct.
And all that stuff. But yeah, that person I'm sure they was talking to in the background, like, was probably Randy Johnson on fucking speakerphone listening to whatever he was being said and then instructing him, you know, on how to proceed with that. And obviously he probably instructed Jeff, like, to say, you know, try some scare tactics on you. And
yep.
I'm sure that they were hoping to find something in your background too that was going to be in their favor in terms of like you being a criminal, which is not the case, because, you know, we all know you used to be in law enforcement and you're not, you know, you haven't been like arrested, you don't have like any drug convictions or anything like that. So yeah, I'm sure that that's pretty much why that went the way that it did.
Yeah. And I think just to even support that more, the second phone call that was made from Randy Johnson to Kim Kemp. And he sent her a copy of the press release. I mean, we're talking, this is all the morning of February the 13th. And Randy Johnson's comments to Kim at that time, and I'm not going to speak for Kim, but I'm just going to kind of paraphrase what she's told me, was that Randy Johnson sent the press release, followed up with a phone call, and said, the guy you've been talking to, Zeke's lying to you. He was carrying more weight, because in the press release it said that they was 30 pounds. And that's what they booked into evidence, was 30 pounds.
Cool. Where's the photos? Where's the audio? Where's the property receipt? Where's the anything, Randy Johnson?
Well, another thing that Randy Johnson told her, he told her that the whole incident was recorded. My whole stop was recorded. And I was like, great, bring it up. Let me see it.
Yeah, that would have been awesome, huh?
Because you will only find everything that I've said in my statements to be the truth. You know, did I get every sentence in the exact order it happened? Probably not, but I didn't leave out anything important, and I definitely didn't, fabricate anything.
You didn't leave out an additional 27 pounds of, you know what I mean?
Exactly. And so Randy called her, said that I was lying, said that it was recorded.
That's so awesome, man, because given what we know now and everything that's transpired in court, just shows how full of shit and how much, big of a liar and criminal that dude is.
Oh yeah,
because he clearly just made that entire thing up. We know that,
correct?
Based on the evidence and everything. So
well, and I think what it was one of these things that they never felt it was going to go as far as it did. They always felt that each of the things that they were doing immediately right then,
they thought they'd be able to contain it, and
was going to contain it. So nobody was ever going to find out that it wasn't recorded.
That's a very common law enforcement tactic anyway, to use on somebody. Like, oh, it's recorded. Are you sure? We have you on camera. We have you on, audio, whatever, in hopes that you're going to be like, oh, well, never mind.
I was in hopes. Yeah, bring it out.
No. Well,
give it to me.
But that's the difference, right? When someone is in the right and they are doing things, they're not full of shit, then they are going to oh, awesome, cool.
Yeah.
But, they didn't, obviously, they thought that you were just going to give up, so.